Hello, Libero lovelies. I know I said I was not going to do a Libero video, and I'm not for the purposes of analysis. I will not do, but something happened recently, and it caught my eye, and it was rather humorous. I figured I would share it because if nothing else, we can all laugh about it. Of course, it's not a laughing matter, and I don't mean to ridicule the situation. What I want to do is really bring to attention that this is worse than it seems, and hopefully we can get more awareness of the problem to the people that would fix it. Whether they're going to listen or not, that's a different problem. I can't get them to listen to me because allegedly Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about. So no problem, but I can still be a conduit. I can still share information. I can still be just that voice, at least somewhat voice of reason, hopefully, to see if we can get them back on track. I can't promise a thing, and I'm not trying to promise a thing, but I want to try it and see what we get and then kind of go from there. In order to do so, I need the help of CoinMarketCap. That's where they have a community section. If you didn't know, they have a pretty interesting community thing going on. And the community thing, the way it works is that it's kind of like a thread, it's like a bulletin board, message board thread, and you can comment on different tokens. So you have one place for every token that's out there, and you can go and you can comment on those. And Rich Quack actually does comment on other people's tokens, and it's a community nobody's watching, frankly, that should. Because if you're a serious token outside the bubble, this would be a great way to understand the sentiment of your audience and make sure that you're on the right track with your development strategy instead of what they currently do, which is, well, you just don't understand. You will get there. You just don't understand. It'll all make sense, and then you're not delivering. So everybody knows Libero's down. Everybody knows Libero is trending down. Even now, months after the fact, it's trending down, right? Well, I wanted to understand the sentiment. So what I've been doing on the weeklies is just kind of reading tweets from people and just explaining, look, man, you guys are not on the right page here, and it's not going to work, and we need to stop what you're doing because it ain't working, right? But Twitter kind of sucks, and so I figured let's do these guys, CoinMarketCap, and see what people say here, see if it's any funnier. Twitter's pretty funny, but let's go with this one. Starting with user Malexandru, who says, quote, this shit is going down every day. Malexandru is not wrong because it is dwindling every day. We are hitting a red period, and I believe the devs would complain or make an excuse that, well, it's red for everybody. Well, it is now. It wasn't before. And before, when it was not red for everybody else, it was green for everybody else, you were still going in the red. And your short pump wasn't impressing anybody because that's what it was a short pump. That's the truth. Nothing's wrong with what's being said here. User Ivan Belasevic says, quote, try selling the crap coin. Of course, what Ivan's referring to is the fact that they applied a tax over sells. Understand the way cryptos today work. I covered this in one of my other videos. I do recommend you look at it about whales. And what these cryptos do is they will simply apply a tax as a disincentive to selling. They won't fix the problem. They won't fix the reason people are dumping. They'll just apply some gimmick. LockPay with Car Salesman 2.0 did this ADM garbage. All of this is around trying to stop people from selling. Green Chart, same thing. HODL token initially, same thing. The gimmick to try to stop people from selling. And then applying this and then presumably doing a redistribution to all existing holders to collect, in this case, reflections or rebase, whatever, as an incentive to sticking the course. Very few of them actually want to build a utility or something that makes them worth buying into in the first place. And so they're not solving the underlying problem. What I want you to think about this. If people keep selling and you're not enticing more people to buy in, what good is it if you're doing this sell tax? Because at some point you're going to run out of people selling. So the sell tax doesn't do any good because you're not benefiting the people who stayed because you haven't any people who buy. So nobody's benefiting. Nobody wins. The sell tax is a disincentive. And we saw this more and more. During the bull run, they got away with it because there was so much green pump. Okay, the volume's like crazy. Everybody's fumbling into projects. So then you can apply a tax and kind of cheat it, right? Well, those days are gone, in my opinion. And this might, maybe, have been the reason that Libero wanted to do the V2 so bad, is to get away from the model of the sell tax and do something else. If they had stopped ignoring me and telling people that Crypto Talk Radio doesn't know what he's talking about, I would have told them the sell tax isn't going to work because you don't have the volume. The volume makes the sell tax moot because nobody's getting applied. And people, you're only harming the legitimate people. And then the 90% off the bank, which is what Ivan's referring to. User Mustard Guy says, quote, people still buy Libero, isn't it dead? Libero keeps it alive till it dies too. But at that point, they'll just make up any shit like Liberoo or whatever, so the scam can go on. I said before, the devs are not malicious. I can confirm this. I'm going to talk briefly to some of them. They're not malicious. They're incompetent. And I want you to understand the difference because they're both harmful. A malicious dev, where they're truly malicious, they're truly trying to rip you off, but they try to hide it. Is that worse than somebody who's incompetent but pretends to be competent but then ultimately costs you money? Which one's worse? Which one would you rather be ripped off by? And think about it like that. Really think about it. Which one would you consider worse? Would you consider it worse that somebody is lying to your face or stabbing you in the back? So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. It's like, well, their pattern is they're going to spin up another shiny, which they've done before. Garuda, Cerberus, Multiverse, Epic Hero, Thorium, the Thunder tokens, all 4 of them, 5 of them, whatever. Libero, Libera, F Libero, soon to be F Libera, and all this garbage. They just spin up another shiny. And then the miners, they're just more shinies, which is the truth. They spin another one. I will tell you, none of these are dead. None of them. None of them I mentioned are dead. I believe Garuda might be shut down, but everything else is Multiverse Capital is still tradable. You can still trade. It still pays. It's just there's no volume. Same with the Thunder tokens. Same with Epic Hero. They still pay. They're just nothing there because there's no volume. So it's not that they're dead. They're abandoned, certainly, but they're not dead. User Abdul Karamba, quote, very bad team, dead project. And again, it's not dead. Whether it's a bad team or not, again, I go off track record. They launched something successful. They launched something that worked at first, but they couldn't sustain. And then they refused to listen to help and try to help them out when it got really bad. User NY Crassie says, quote, the most bad token that could exist. Thieves with legal ways. Everyone say something on Twitter, tell a scam is banned. Just a thieves team and mods that all deserve to pee on them and spit on faces. I'm not advocating that you urinate on anybody or that you spit a loogie in anybody's face. You couldn't do it anyway because the dev won't show his face. Regardless, I'm not advocating you do any of this stuff. However, I'm trying to call out that sentiment matters. If you've caused people to think these things and feel these things, you have failed as a crypto developer. That's all I'm saying. It's like, why? How can you be so tone deaf to not understand that what you're doing and your inactions are causing people to have these feelings? And then they're not paying attention, clearly, not paying attention to these reactions at all. They don't do it until scam. Apparently they ban you. I'll get to that in a second. And Dion, hopefully Dion's listening to this. Dion said, no, it's because if you keep hammering that you lost money, they'll ban you. Well, I would argue that's unacceptable because if you're just reacting to somebody who's frustrated in a way to ban them instead of fixing the problem, because here's the thing, Libero was fixable. Is it fixable now? I say no, but it was fixable. Like at this point, you almost have to do a V2, but initially it was fixable. This was fixable. This was fixable months ago. They chose not to. They refused to. And so now they're reacting, and spinning up shiny after shiny after shiny. That's why there's a BNB miner. Think about it. If your BUSD miner, which is Libero miner, which is part of Libero miner, if that was effective, so you have Libero miner, okay, but that's not good enough. We got to do a BNB 3X miner. Well, that's not good enough. We got to do a BUSD miner. Like, think about this. Why do you need that? Why do you need to spin up another miner? Why wasn't this one successful? Why wasn't this one doing what you want? They're just reacting. They're just spinning up shinies. And that causes people to think that they're getting ripped off because you're not stopping to fix what you did before, which unfortunately is the core of all this business, is the Libero token, because you built it as component for the wrapped and you don't want to fix it. User 17 says, quote, fix scam 100%. Don't buy this token. Guys, be careful. I said, if you're going to buy it, because there's nothing wrong with buying it, but if you're going to buy it, I would keep it out of the bank. I would just watch price movement. Because is it possible some random day in some distant year that it turns into something? Absolutely. Is it likely? Not the more they keep spinning up shinies, which is why I wanted to get them to stop. Because the more shinies, the more harm of sentiment and the more diluted your product platform is. And of course, your sites are nightmare to begin with. User Yusuf Tamor says, quote, I feel bad. He doesn't even make a claim. He just feels bad. And here's the thing. I feel bad because of the community being a good community, again, it's like a mistreated child. The token, the project, it was great. And then you mistreat it, and then you don't care that you're mistreating it. And then people are upset and frustrated. And you don't care about that either. I feel bad too. Everybody should, but nothing's going to be done about it. And that's a problem. I'm not going to pronounce his user, but he says, quote, scam 43% sell tax garbage token. Of course, the sell tax, again, was their attempt to get people to stop selling. Did it work? I challenge you to look at the graph and tell me it did. User Palm XN says, quote, I invested $2,000 and hardly recovered 50. Sad but true. Lost everything. I don't know if the project was said as a scam or not, but the fact is this coin is complete trash. So I said, I can affirm it's not malicious. However, the definition of scam is kind of wide open, right? Because if you lost money, if you're losing money due to actions or inactions of that dev, you could make a case it's a scam, right? But I can say it's not malicious. I think it's incompetence. And the fact is, yes, the coin is garbage, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, because it was an amazing project when it launched if they had left it alone. User Carbon 7 says, quote, biggest scam of all time. Damn scammers. Goes back to that whole scam conversation. User whatever says, quote, big scam. I asked a polite question about their BUSD miner. That's, of course, the not the Libera miner, but the Binance USD miner. Without any inappropriate word, they banned me and report me and tell a scam restricted my account. These guys are criminals and scammers. If there was any law in the world, they must be arrested. They stole our money. I lost all my money in this scam project. First of all, I'll say it again, because I've said it multiple times here and on the podcast at cryptotalkradio.net. Do not YOLO into a project. Stop doing that. Stop throwing all your money into anything. It's not worth it. And it wasn't worth it here. I know it happened. FOMO. Because it climbed unreasonably. It climbed quite a bit when it launched. It was climbing. It was dropping zeros like mad. Still don't YOLO. Make a little bit of money, move on, because something like this was bound to happen because of the devs and their arrogance and their incompetence. Well then, NY Crassy again says, quote, every time price goes up, liberal team wallets have illimited means unlimited. Number of tokens start selling. They never let investors that lose lots of money in this project recover some of what they lose. There's no way to prove any of this. We don't see massive dumps. We see small sells, and ultimately, more importantly, no buy pressure. Because think about it. If you have buy pressure, your buy pressure should outweigh your sell pressure. We have excessive sell pressure, and you can look on Dex Tools or PooCoin, and you can see they're all different things. The devs are not pulling tens and hundreds of different wallets to do this business. There's no reason to do that. Because at the end of the day, remember, they have access to the liquidity. It's not renounced. The liquidity is not locked. So they could easily have stolen it. I don't buy this. I don't. However, something is brought to attention in a different Discord. And this actually came from the Libero Discord, but it was a different person that brought this to attention. And that was around this Quantic business, Quantic Finance. And apparently this Delo, I don't think of Delo Brown, but this Delo said that they're the developer of Quantic Finance, and says, quote, I see that Libero copied my contract for the miner. Could you guys at least do something unique instead of blatantly copying my exact code? Instead of copying my miner, why not partner with us or both, right? Now, there's no way to prove this. There's no way to prove, because I can't see the code, because it's all baked into the audit, right? So there's no way to prove this. However, the Quantic Finance, as I looked at everything on the Quantic side, and I wanted to kind of understand a little bit deeper, they have some basic documentation about what they're doing. And one of the sections, this is their Git book. So they talk about automation here, and this that they're describing. Well, it's a 6-1 strategy, 6-day compounding, 1-day claim, automation at any time, and all this stuff. Sounds familiar, right? This is basically what they have on the Libera miner and on the BNB miner, I believe. I haven't looked at that one, but I believe it is. Well, I can't see the code, but I am concerned that it is the same exact automation that Quantic did. That concerns me. However, I don't know if the BNB miner, which was the originator of this business, did the same thing. That's what I don't know. So I tried to dig, can't do too much because it's not readily available in what's doing. Here's the audit that came from the Solidity side, and it gives me some of the functions that were called out, but we don't see, because unfortunately it was all done through the Thorium exchange for KYC and then done through CertiK, and CertiK doesn't give you this as a readily available deal. You can see the PDF, but not to this level of detail. Like this is what I wanted to see so I can compare and contrast. And in looking at all the different functions, I'm assuming, and this is an assumption, I'm not making a statement of fact, I'm making an assumption that Quantic probably copied from BNB Miner, tweaked a couple things. Well, if that's true, then Libero coming along and copying the same thing and tweaking a couple things is fair game, because that's what they all do. Like Libero openly admitted that they took Titano's contract, forked it off, and tweaked a couple stuff to do that. So it wouldn't surprise me if they took this from Quantic, right? So Quantic coming back and saying, yeah, you just copied our code. I'm not sold that they copied it straight over. However, when I looked at Quantic's performance, okay, now it starts to make sense what the heck is going on with Libero, because Quantic is having the same exact issue with a bunch of dumping. Quantic has way less liquidity. Quantic has way less volume. Quantic has allegedly way less supply. Despite having less supply, it has the same business. Now, back in August, about a week and a half ago, there was this major dump, and people started freaking out, thinking that it was some sort of a rug pull or something. It wasn't a rug pull. We don't really know what happened there. However, if you were to look at Libero past, you're going to see high levels of sell, like strong sells, just like this one. I have a theory now. Now that I saw this kind of connection, I have a theory. What if, so if any of those devs come over here, start tripping, I'm giving a theory. If you don't like it, how about you call me and welcome the smoke? What if the Quantic contract, let's say that Libero did copy this contract for the miners. What if the Quantic contract had a flaw in the way the code was written that allowed people to exploit out of the reward system? And what if Libero didn't catch the exploit, and it just so happened that Libero tanked first, and after people figured out how to exploit Libero, they went back over to this Quantic and did the same exploit over there. And so now Quantic it's basically think of like a memory leak in programming, that there's this known thing that was found, and then somebody said, oh, the same thing applies over here. Here's where I'm going with this, right? Titano. If you go back in my videos, I did a cover on Titano when they did the new contract, and I said, this contract is garbage. There's all sorts of hoops. If you look at Titano's graph is hurting, folks. It's bad. Way worse than the first, and just dwindling. Seifu also had its dump and started dwindling. These are all rebase tokens. So it got me thinking, what if there was a flaw to begin with that nobody caught and nobody fixed, and everybody's being affected by, and nobody's been able to resolve it because nobody's been willing to listen to people like Crypto Talk Radio to try to help them identify these risks up front. And because they're just going forward, they're just reacting because they assume it's a different problem. When they did the Zap deal, and they were saying, well, maybe the Zap is triggering cells, right? Others don't have the Zap, but they have those cells. Titano never had the Zap that I could see. They have the cells. Drip never had the Zap. They have the cells. Seifu never had the Zap. They have the cells. Do you understand? Like, the theory changes now. The hypothesis changes. Maybe it's not the Zap at all. Maybe there's a flaw in the contract that everybody has inherited and nobody has caught. And I say that because if you think of LockPay, that's what they allegedly had, is some flaw that they caught later, but it was too late, and then they do V2 and it craps just the same as V1. Because maybe somebody has been able to figure out the magic behind draining out of the project from some conduit that these devs can't even figure out. Now, the whole Libero situation gets a lot more obvious of what really went wrong. Because if it's true, and I can't say it is, but the dates would tie up. When the Quantic, that's called Cube, Q-U-B-E, when this came up was around February. Libero launched in February. So maybe, just maybe, somewhere there was some issue at the contract level for this code for the miner. I'm not talking the token, I'm talking the miner, that nobody caught and nobody bothered to screen and scrub and fix, or they might have trusted the audits to tell them if there was such a thing, and the audit's not going to catch some of this stuff. It's very intriguing, very fascinating. So I want to, in closing, thank everybody who's on CoinMarketCap. I want to thank you for being you, providing me a good laughing bit, but also something to think about in what really went wrong with this business and why it feels like the devs, although they appear to be brilliant developers from a UI perspective, why the shinies, right? New shiny that's a copy of this other shiny. Maybe they're just copying the code and just spinning it up and not fixing the underlying problem, which would explain also why they were able to perform better than Titano, at least for a brief period of time. Now the game changes. Now, as an investor, prospective investor, or current investor, your call to action is to think about if it's true, and I want to stress it again because people didn't listen to the totality of my audio. If it's true that Libero team just stole code, faulty code, and it caused it to fail, and we're talking the minor code when we talk about this. If Libero launched in February, this cube launches in February, if they had the idea of doing the minor way back when, I can't say they did, they had that document out there that said mining's bad, liquidity mining's bad. Okay, so then why did we end up with a miner? If we ended up with a miner and it is the same code as Quantic, then it's possible that that document was a bunch of BS. Just a bunch of BS to entice people to jump aboard and leave the other project. I'm saying maybe that document that trashed liquidity mining, they didn't mean what they said. They just wanted people to jump away from those other projects and jump over here with the bond, and they never wanted to go full serious with the bond. And now that they see the miners not working the way they want, because if you notice, you're not getting the thousands in there that you used to. It was never sustainable. So did they put the document out to try to compete and failed, and then ultimately turns out the document was right all along? This is clown show, people. It's clown show. That's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with clown show. And that's why I just said I'm not going to do any coverage on this business, because I can't honestly, I can't in good conscience advocate what they're doing now, because I see it's not working by way of the graph and by way of their inactions and the fact that the project's crapping. And other projects aren't crapping, they're going down. Certainly in the red now, we do see more down, but even then, most of them are not way down like Libero. I'll say it again. Many of us are just stuck in the banks, so not much we can do anyway. But if you're holding out hope that Libero gets back up to track, it's got 9 quadrillion supply. And if you don't believe me, I challenge you to go to CoinMarketCap and look for yourself and look at the top where it says max supply. That's actually the supply. It's 9 quadrillion. Do you understand how bad that is in what that means? If you actually had buy pressure, buying it up, and you had the support and you hadn't hurt sentiment, then you might have been able to chew some of that up. But geez, at this point, it's not looking good. I'm not making any statement other than tokens in a bad spot right now. And I don't see it's getting any better because they don't seem to want to get it any better. And nothing they do on Libera at this point, months after they said it was going to be on exchanges and still not done,